So, very good afternoon to one and all. Honorable guest speaker, Dr. Ram Bhogle sir has joined our cloud meeting. So, on behalf of UGC Malviya Mission Teachers Training Center, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, I welcome Ram Bhogle sir to this last day of NEP orientation and sensitization program being conducted by our Malviya Mission Teachers Training Center. Before going to the official introduction of the guest, a few instructions to the participants. Today being a last day, as already it has been told that you have to upload all the necessary documents on the UGC portal. If today you are not able to submit those documents, you will not get a certificate. After that, don't call or don't message us that you have attended all the course, but still your certificate is pending. So it is a humble request that the certificate distribution can be done only if you have uploaded all the necessary required documents on the UGC portal. It is monitored by the University Grants Commission Secretary. Secondly, coming to this NEP sensitization course, the MCQs exams will be held on Friday from 11:30 to 12:30. Tomorrow, nothing will be there. On Friday, through a Google form, MCQs exam will be conducted. Then and only your course will be completed. Kindly take a note of it. Thanks a lot. If you have any queries, you can write it in the your queries into the WhatsApp group. Coming back to introduction of our respected guest, Ram Bhogle sir, born in the year February 1955, holds a Bachelor of Engineering Mechanical degree. He is currently serving as a chairman of Applied Innovation and Technology Group. He has done his schooling from Saraswati Bhavan School, Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, has been graduated from Government Engineering College. His career journey, he started way back in the year 1976. He began his career as an engineer in family-owned industry, initially involved in production of medical equipment. He has later expanded and improved the factory production, achieving a 25% increase in the output. In 1991, he entered the automobile industry, contributing significantly to its development. Today, he plays a crucial role in three major companies that provide support to the automobile industry through various organizations, including Cooperative Bank, Major Trust, Medical Facilities, and Workers' Insurance Board. He actively participates in and contributes to numerous sectors. Leadership and contribution, he has served in various leadership roles at local and state level in industrial organization. He has also been a part of several government committees. Ram Bhogle sir is known for delivering a lecture on a diverse topic within India and abroad. His writing covers current issues in various newspapers. Apart from his industrial and economic engagement, he actively contributes to social causes, participating in discussing on television channels, focusing on industries, economics, and social issues. Recognition and award for his contribution in various fields. He has been honored by organizations such as the Fay Foundation, Maxwell Foundation, Marathwada, Mitra Mandal, and others. Dr. Ram Bhogle sir is multi-faced contribution extended across various sectors, making him distinguished figure in the industry and society. So again, I welcome Ram Bhogle sir, and I would now hand over the session to our respected guest. Over to you, sir. सर अनम्यूट करा. राम भोगले सर अनम्यूट करा आपण मोबाईल.
I thought we doing unmuting. Okay, now am I?
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Okay, thank you for this introduction. And as rightly pointed out, my entire career has been in industry. I have contributed to many economic organizations, industry organizations. But my qualification to be speaking today is that I have headed educational institution in Aurangabad, the Saraswati Bhuvan Education Society, which is almost 108-year-old education society running 13 schools and 4 colleges. And while serving there as the president of the trust, I came across a new national education policy, and we did a lot of work in national education policy. So from that background, I would start by thanking the organizers for inviting me, and also thanking the Saraswati Bhuvan Education Society for actually giving me an opportunity to study national education policy and work on it for last 2-3 years. Having said that, today's subject, higher education and society, is something that we discussed, and then I picked up the subjects thinking that I'm not a hardcore academician, nor do I have a PhD in any subject. My general experience is of an industrialist and a contributor to various social causes. So I can very well represent society and make a few comments in this online sensitization program on behalf of the society. And higher education is something that I have worked in for last 5 years as chairman of the trust of SB Education Society. So I am exposed to higher education, but not only in SB Education Society. I was a part of two high-powered committees appointed by Government of Maharashtra for prospective planning of various universities and then implementation of RUSA in various universities. So through that, I had some exposure. Prior to that, I was sitting on board of the Engineering College, Aurangabad, and also at the management board of Guru Gobind Singh College of Engineering in Nanded. I was a part of the board of IIM Amritsar, also part of board of IIM in Srinagar. So actually, I have a wide exposure to education as such, and I have been having keen interest in educating people. Coming to the topic today, higher education and society. So I started thinking, once we discussed this topic, I started thinking on uh, how do words that we use impact our understanding of the subject. Most of us who are in field of education have been used to this word education, and we rarely use learning instead of education. But the National Education Policy 2020 is absolutely putting emphasis on learning, not really on education. So it's a policy which will provide platform for students to acquire knowledge. And if you really look at dictionary meaning of education, the dictionary meaning of education is a systematic process of receiving or giving instructions. So it's a systematic process of either receiving or giving instructions. So a third person is involved. If you are receiving instructions, some educator is involved. If you are giving instructions, then you are the educator. But same definition for learning is to actually acquire new knowledge or new understanding systematically. So basically, one person can start learning, but one person to start education is a little difficult because there is one more person involved who is either a student or an educator. So question is, if the emphasis is on learning, should the subject be higher learning and society? Because the national education policy puts emphasis on learning. And if you look at the two topics, one is higher education and society, and the other that I am suggesting is higher learning and society, the whole perspective changes. I think using the correct words so that the common people or the society has the right perception about what we are doing or what we are trying to do is most important. See, education as it is understood by common people or in the society, and education as it is understood in the people who are working in the field for past many years would be two different meanings. The perception of society would be very different. The perception of people working in the education field would be very different. We need to actually come on the same platform. So I thought that we need to understand what do we understand when we say education. Now I'll not use word learning, though it is emphasized in new education, national education policy. I would continue to use this word education because that's what is today's topic. So we need to actually understand and come on the same platform when we perceive the meaning of word education. And I have included a few slides in my presentation just to bring all of us on the same platform to understand what do we mean by education. Most of these slides would actually deal with primary and secondary education, not really the higher education. But unless you know and understand what is meant by education at primary and secondary level, it would be very difficult to actually go on discussing the higher education. So let's start with the first slide. Uh, Next slide, please.
Amol, next slide. Yes.
Yeah. So this is the understanding of national education policy in a nutshell, as we did exercises in Saraswati Bhuvan Education Society. So this slide is thanks to Saraswati Bhuvan Education Society. National education policy has many facets, and there are four distinct facets about which the national education policy has, not in so many words, at different places, made some comments. So we have tried to actually bring all of them together. And the first comment that we actually did, or we could distill out of the whole preamble of the national education policy, was about the necessity of education. So education is fundamental and essential for achieving full human potential and its manifestation. So it doesn't talk about only achieving full human potential, it also speaks about the manifestation. So actually people who are learning, who are getting educated, should also be able to exhibit what they have learned. And manifestation is absolutely essential for any meaningful contribution to the society. So if you are learned but you are not able to actually contribute, then your entire education may be of use to you, but it will not be of any use to the society. So manifestation of whatever you have learned, whatever you have received in systematic instructions, is an absolute must. Hello.
Yes, sir, you can continue.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
was having mic on. I have stopped
Okay,
it.
okay. So it should be inclusive, equitable, quality education, promoting lifelong learning. Now the education has to be promoting lifelong learning. It should be inclusive, it should be equitable, and it should be of a certain standard. I won't go into details of all this because all of you being from academia, you would understand the meaning of all these words. But to me, lifelong learning is the most important word or phrase. See, unless you learn to learn during your process of education, lifelong learning will not be possible. If you are always receiving instructions and you are not used to doing any self studies or any learning, if you have not acquired the quality of learning, then it would be very difficult for you to continue to learn, because there would be no teachers, there would be no professors guiding you. the life itself would be a big platform. Through your experiences, you will have to continue to learn. So I think lifelong learning is a very important word that is encapsulated in preamble of the national education policy. The second statement is about the education should develop a good human being. So what should be the product of education? The education should develop good human beings having rational thinking and actions, courage and resilience, scientific temper and creative imagination with sound ethical moorings. Now, this last word, sound ethical moorings, there are people who are courageous, there are people who are resilient, there are people in society who are actually creative and very imaginative, but without the sound ethical moorings, all their endeavors need not be in the interest of society. I am not saying that all of them would not be working in the interest of society, but with sound ethical moorings, most of them would be working in the interest of the society. And therefore, the second statement about what should be the impact of education on the students who go through that process is very important. And again, as I said, it's not said in these many words in the preamble of the national education policy, but we made efforts to collect all the various points together to formulate it into a statement. The third is about how the education should be. Education should be more experiential, holistic, integrated, inquiry driven, discovery oriented, learner centered, discussion based, flexible, and most importantly, enjoyable. So, if you read all this, the entire statement, you will find that systematic instructions being given by an educator to a student is not what this policy envisages. This policy envisages holistic learning, experiential learning, where things are integrated, you don't work in silos. It is inquiry driven. So ask questions, try to find answers. So if you ask questions, the answer should not be given, it should be discovered. It should be learner centered, discussion based. So if you do not find the answer, there could be points, counterpoints, and through the discussions, you come to a common understanding of an answer to a doubt or a query that is being raised. It should be flexible and it should be enjoyable. See, at this moment in most of the education, except schools, we find that the students presently in the classes is something that is being discussed across the country. And this attendance of students in classes or classrooms is something that is a major concern for many educational institutions. I personally believe that if the process of educating becomes enjoyable, students would prefer to be in the classroom rather than outside the classroom. And we need to actually make sure that the entire process becomes enjoyable. So if you introduce all these elements of inquiries, discovery, discussions, experiential, so it's not just a dialogue, it is some action. If you introduce some kind of experiments, some kind of actions in the classroom to get clarity on certain concepts, I believe it would become so interesting and the students would start participating, and this participation would make the entire process enjoyable. And let me tell you, we have tried this in our educational institution and it works. It works wonders. The last part is about the educational institutions. So An educational institute must offer safe and stimulating learning environment, wide range of learning experiences, and very good infrastructure where learner feels welcome and cared for. Now, if a student feels an alien in any environment, the student would not like to join the classrooms or the environment because he would feel an outsider. The moment the students start feeling that they are insiders, they are a part of the whole process, I am sure the education would become very efficient and very effective. So the educational institute has to offer this. It has to offer a very safe and stimulating environment. It has to offer a wide range of learning experiences. Now here it is not teaching, it is about learning experiences. So students should be able to do a lot of creative experiments through their imagination to understand various concepts, to understand various subjects, and that experience should help the student to learn. Good infrastructure, of course, becomes part of the whole thing because without that infrastructure, giving good environment, giving good experiences becomes a little difficult. And a learner should feel welcome. So that entirely depends on people like us who either manage the educational institutions, are a part of actually the teaching learning process. So most of the teachers, most of the professors who are part of teaching learning process will have to ensure that the students feel welcome into the classrooms and welcome into the entire process. I think this slide to me gives me a snapshot of what the national education policy is all about. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. Thank you. So for us, having worked, for me, having worked in Saraswati Bhuvan Education Society and having interacted with close to about 400 teachers and professors working for the society, I thought that we need to actually bring clarity on what really education needs, what are the fundamental blocks of education. And to many, as we discussed in various workshops, to many the fundamental blocks were either the building or the curriculum or the teachers or the students. But all these things keep changing. I mean, a building in one society is not the same as a building in another education society. So there are a lot of changes. But what doesn't change is the knowledge. The knowledge in any subject remains the same whether you acquire it in Aurangabad or Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar or acquire it in Indore or any other city or any other village in the country. It remains the same. What it also needs is skills because that's a fundamental block. Now we are not talking of actually uh, classic case where a person who is highly educated is not able to deliver anything. He is good for nothing, but he has qualifications, he has degrees, but he is not able to do anything. He, he or she is not able to do anything because he or she may have acquired a lot of subject knowledge and passed exams, but may not have any skills to actually use that knowledge. So developing skills is very fundamental to learning and education. The next point that is fundamental block is aptitude. Your natural abilities, a student's or a teacher's natural abilities is something that is fundamental to education. And the last is the values. With these founding blocks, if you are very positive, then you move towards progress. But if you have a lot of ego and if you have a lot of negativity, then you move towards actually a decline. There's no progress. So with all the education, we find that there are people who are not able to really progress. The key to their progress would be their positivity and their humility, and the key to their decline or not being able to really do what they are expected to do with all the degrees and education they have is probably their ego and their negativity. So if you observe the world around us, we find that people with very high education and a lot of knowledge are not really able to contribute to the society as much is their potential. They do contribute, but not to their potential. And that is because of their ego or their negativity. But there are people whose potential actually may be much less as compared to some others, but they are able to actually contribute much more purely because of their humility and their positivity. So, with these foundational blocks of education, which each educational institution and individual must have, you must have a positivity, then only you are able to contribute to the society. So these foundation blocks are our understanding of foundational blocks of education. I am sure all of you can put your heads together. Some of you may have already thought about these and could come out with some other foundational blocks also. So this is an indicative list. This is not an exhaustive list of foundational blocks of education. But to us, about 400 of us who went through the entire process of understanding the national education policy, we thought that these four blocks are absolute must. These form the foundational blocks of education. And with positivity, we are able to actually acquire more knowledge. With negativity, there is a less possibility of acquiring knowledge and even lesser possibility of actually contributing to the society through acquired knowledge. So may I move to the next slide, please? See, most of us working in the field of education, in the formal education field, think that education is all about passing from one grade to a next grade. That is, you join in the preschool and then graduate or do post graduation at a university level, or maybe do your PhD at the university level or at college level. And that's the progress of education. So if you ask anyone in society, what's your educational progress? They will either reply that I am doing this course, I am in the fifth year, I am in the seventh year of school, I am in the final year of BSc or BA, I am in the first year of the master's course, or I am doing my PhD. But in the real sense, as it was understood and then postulated by Blooms in 1956, the real educational progression is at the basic level, you must start remembering. And the column also shows you the verbs that can be used for actions to improve your remembering ability. So if you want to actually increase your Smarana Shakti, then you have to do activities as suggested by the various verbs used in that column. So it is either define or identify or describe or recognize or tell or recite. I remember we used to do reciting of the tables, mathematical tables, and that way we actually remembered those tables. So there are various ways. Even a poem is remembered by reciting. So these are the actions that are required for the basic education, that is smaran or remembering. The next stage is to understand what you have remembered. So there are other actions as defined in the column through verbs. Then the next step of education is to actually apply. You have remembered something, you now know what it means. Is it possible that you are able to use it somewhere? So actually using it through actions is something That's the third stage of learning. Then are you able to analyze what you are using? What you have actually understood, what you have remembered? If you are able to analyze, you have achieved the fourth stage of learning. Are you able to evaluate all this? If you are able to evaluate, you are at the fifth stage of learning. And then by using whatever you have acquired during this process, if you are able to create something new, if you are able to fuse knowledge from various subjects and create something new, then according to this theory, you have already done your PhD or you have graduated, you have finished your learning. So when there was no degrees awarded by any institution, the education was being evaluated or a student was being evaluated through these steps. Where does a student stand? And let me tell you, this is not black and white. There would be shades of gray in between. So while you are remembering, you are also understanding something. And while you are understanding, you are not even remembering a few things. So there is always going to be a mix and match. So even if you are able to create something in certain areas, you may not be remembering certain areas at all. So it's a question of aptitude. What are your natural abilities? And what are the skills that you have acquired over this period of learning? And typically, this would take anywhere between 15 to 20 years of process. And at various stages, you will actually have to devise various activities so that the student is able to progress from one stage to other stage. So that's my understanding of education. I don't look at education as passing from first standard to second standard and then graduating ultimately and receiving a degree from a university. That's not my idea of education. My idea of education is this progression. Anyone who has gone through this progression may not have joined the formal education system at all. He or she may not have joined the formal education system at all, but still, I would say that the person is highly educated if the person is able to create new things by using knowledge of various areas, various subjects. Next slide, please. So, what are the values that you need to imbibe during this entire process of starting from age of 3 as now envisaged in the national education policy to a age of 21 by the time you finish your graduation? So, and I'm not saying post graduation, I am saying graduation. So by the time you finish your graduation, it's an entire period of about 17, 18 years. So what are the values that you need to imbibe? And some of the values are very well known. This is not particular to any particular religion. If you read all the literature in various religions and various sects, all these values are encapsulated in most of the literature, and therefore they are basic uh, values for a good living. If a person wants to live happy and satisfied life, then these are the values that are required. And having worked in business for last 47 years, I have realized that people who are successful have a lot of these values imbibed in their persona and in their business. Unless these values are imbibed in their persona and in their business, they don't become successful. And even if they become successful without these values, then their success is not long lasting. It's only a short lived success that they are, and depends on how one measures success. One could measure success based on the money that a person earns. But to me, more than that, how much credit a person has earned, what's his credibility in the society is something that would define his success rather than how much money a person has. So his reputation and credibility in the society is a measure of success. And if you really look at success in that from that angle, then unless you have many of these values, you will not be very successful. So these values have to be a part of the process of education. How you design activities so that the students acquire these values, various values, is a big challenge in front of the academia. They will have to actually come out with various activities so that a student is able to understand the concept in a subject, at the same time acquire some skills and also acquire some values during the process. Next slide, please. See, to me, education is actually increasing the abilities of a person. It's not only restricted to knowledge. Uh, it is kshamata vriddhi. So you actually increase the abilities of a person while he is going through the process of education or process of learning. And if you really focus on increasing the abilities and you want them to have certain values, then there are various skills that a person needs to acquire. And along with that, the person must have certain attributes. And if you combine skills with values, you will find that every single attribute that we enlist here is a combination of a certain skill and certain values. A combination of these two is actually called attributes. Gun or marks, as is understood in the current educational system, is something which, in my opinion, is not as important as this gun or attributes that one should look at. Not the marks, but the attributes. So when you say what gun do you have? It's not the marks, it is the attributes that you may have acquired during the process of learning and skills. So there are some basic skills, there are some advanced skills, and there are some average skills or say intermediary skills which everyone must have. Advanced skills are required for people who are actually involved in uh, professions or businesses which really need those advanced skills. But not everyone needs those advanced skills. But everyone needs some basic skills. Basic skills like communication. Communication is something that each one of us must learn. We must actually be able to do planning, at least the basic planning. If a person is not able to do basic planning, then his life becomes really miserable. I mean, he is not able to efficiently do anything because he lacks the basic skill of planning. And there are many other skills like reading, writing, cooperative spirit, or observation. Unless you are observant, you will not be able to make right decisions. You need to actually observe a lot, record it in your mind, remember it, and then process it in your brain, and then come to a conclusion and make decisions. So this is again not an exhaustive list of either skills or attributes. This is what is a indicative list of skills and attributes. And I'm actually taking you all through this because our understanding of higher education depends on what is actually meaning of education. I mean, if you just talk about our subjects or languages or humanities subjects and talk about only curriculum and completely lack the perspective of attributes and skills, then a student may not benefit as much as the student should have. And if a teacher or an educator or a facilitator, as the new uh, expectation of national education policy, I think unless you have some idea about the skills and some idea about the attributes, uh, you will not be able to be very effective in actually transforming the student who are actually part of the process in your institutions. So there has to be a basic understanding of this, and that's why I thought that I should be speaking to you about this. Next slide, please. So we are in education, and we are talking about the higher education and the society. But do we really appreciate what are the challenges in front of the society? And particularly the younger generation that would be joining the field in coming years. What are the challenges that they face? Unless we understand those challenges, we will not be able to do justice to the process of education or process of learning. And therefore, understanding the challenges is equally important. And the challenges that you see is uh, readiness for a knowledge society, free of poverty, inequality, and intolerance. Now, you are aspiring to have a society which would be free of poverty, free of inequality, and free of intolerance. And it would be completely a knowledge driven society. So, we have to be ready for such a society. The world is dreaming about this society, and unless we are ready for such a society, we will not be able to actually make an impact in the world on the world platform. The next challenge is about the readiness for emerging industry 4 technologies and their impact on nature and society. So there is a lot of talk about the impact of technologies. The technology that we are currently using, the online form of meetings or education or holding seminars, is something that's very new and has been started being widely used only after Corona when our movement was restricted. So, understanding the technologies, being able to use these technologies, and understanding their impact on the society, impact on nature, is something that's a major challenge in front of the generation that would be joining the field now. Readiness for pandemics, globalization, and climate change. Now, these technologies and the way our aspirations are leading to development of various economic models, there's a huge impact on climate. Because of globalization, we are no more protected from what happens in the other continents. Whatever happens wherever in the world has definite impact on our day-to-day lives. And pandemics is something that we have recently faced. So there was a time when in 1920s we faced plague, and then only in 2020 we faced coronavirus. But in the meantime, there were many other viruses that were playing havoc in limited areas. So pandemic of the magnitude of corona was only in 1920 when the world and many countries faced plague epidemic. I think in future, because of the globalization and because of the continuous travel of people from one place to other place and continuous movement of goods, animals and plants from one place to other place, the pandemics would have the kind of magnitude that corona had. So they will not be restricted to certain areas. The pandemics would then actually become global pandemics far quicker than they used to happen in the 19th century or 20th century. I think in 21st century, the pandemics would become a major challenge for people, including the climate change. Readiness for reduce, refuse, reuse, recycle, recover, restore. Now, as Indians or as Bharatiyas, for us, many of these are very known concepts. We don't actually use and throw. We actually try to find alternate uses to something that has lost its use or useful life for a particular use for which we have acquired it. So we start using it for something else. And recycling and reuse is a part of our day-to-day life. But unfortunately, my experience in past 20, 25 years is anyone who is reusing or recycling was being looked down upon. Only those who were economically backward or only those who were backward in their thinking were actually recycling and reusing. Frankly speaking, anyone whose requirements were minimal and he would mostly put everything to use and reuse and reduce the use of everything was the one who was most respected person in our society. But then we started becoming globalized, so to say, westernized, and then we started thinking that anyone who was able to use maximum and anyone who had the largest carbon footprint was the person to be respected. I think we are going back to the traditional knowledge that this country had developed, this continent had developed. I won't say country, this continent had developed. The continent of Asia had developed. And this is a major challenge because it's a paradigm shift. From a paradigm of consume, this is paradigm of conserve. And this is a major challenge for our students. And then there is a readiness for aspirational and sustainable, yet sustainable lifestyles. So your lifestyles may be aspirational, but they also have to become sustainable. Something that you actually acquire and you are not able to sustain and you have to give up within 1 or 2 years actually puts a lot of pressure on yourself and the society. So these are the challenges that have been enlisted. And again, this list is not exhaustive. This is an indicative list. But these are the challenges in front of the educators and education. How to prepare our future generations for mitigating these challenges, for being successful after mitigating these challenges is something that we are facing. And then what are the basic skills and what are the attributes that a person or a student would require is the next slide. So let's go to the next slide. See, there are some foundational literacies that are required. They will be required even in future for mitigating all the challenges that we discussed. So one is literacy. Without literacy and numeracy, there is nothing. Scientific literacy is something that would also be required. But in scientific and technology literacy, information technology literacy is far more important now because all our daily life is now almost dependent on ICT, information technology. Without information technology, there is nothing happening. Every small thing that we use nowadays has a computer inside it. There is a chip inside it, and unless we know how it works, it would not be possible to actually live life peacefully and successfully. Financial literacy is another thing. You see, there was a time when we used to very fondly discuss how a particular person who was very successful actor lived as a pauper at the end of his life, and how he was required to be supported by his fans so that he could at least get some basic medical treatment. See, all this happened basically because of lack of financial literacy. And we still find people who earn but are still not able to manage their day-to-day life within what they earn. Not that their earnings are less or more. Their financial literacy is so poor that they are not able to manage within what they are earning. And that's the situation. There is a class of people whose earnings are simply not enough. And they are not even able to manage the basics. But apart from them, there is a large majority in the society whose earnings are reasonably well and they are not able to still manage their earnings because of lack of financial literacy, and they are not really able to plan for their future post retirement once they become actually incapable of earning more or continue to earn more, then they need to have some basic security. And we always go to the government and say that create social securities, but ultimately the government would also have limitations. Each individual planning for his own retirement and his own sustenance post his ability to earn has vanished would help the government in creating certain securities, social securities, that would take care of people who are simply not able to even manage their day-to-day lives today through their earnings. Not because of lack of financial literacy, but simply because of lack of opportunities to earn enough income. So I believe financial literacy is also a foundational literacy that would help us in mitigating many challenges thrown on us because of pandemics, because of the I would say global warming, because of the technological changes. All these are going to throw a lot of challenges which would need some sustenance, and that sustenance would come through financial literacy. And then cultural and civic literacy. You see, if the society has to be peaceful, society has to be of people who respect each other, society is a society which loves each other, there is no hate, then such a society would only be possible if our learnings about cultural and civic literacies are better. These are the foundational things that a person would need. Then, what are the competencies? See, the basic competencies would be creativity, of course. Then, critical thinking, problem solving. These are the basic competencies that would be required for each one of us. Communication, of course, and collaboration. See, without teamwork, achieving any success and sustaining it is very difficult. So, these are the competencies that most of us would need: critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, communication, and collaboration. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you have very tall ego and you are negative, collaboration is simply ruled out. But if you are very positive and humble, then collaboration becomes very easy. So basically, these are the competencies that would be required to actually fight the future challenges, to mitigate the future challenges. And then there are character qualities. And these qualities would actually mean you need to imbibe a lot of basic values. One is curiosity. So your curiosity is expressed only when you have enough courage to express it. So courage is a value that you will need, but you have curiosity and then you do nothing about it because you have no courage to actually express and find. Then this curiosity has no meaning. Initiative. See, unless you take initiatives, you will not progress. You will not actually meet the challenges in front of you. Uh, Persistence and grit. So persistence is required. You are not going to be successful in the first attempt, nor are you going to succeed in 24 hours. You will need to work on certain issues for maybe months together without losing hope. And you will need a lot of grit for that. Unless you have these character qualities, it would be very difficult to actually sustain in life where you have multiple challenges facing you. Adaptability. Now, unless you adapt to new realities, you will not be able to face life. You will not be able to contribute to the society. Leadership. If you have the initiative and if you have the courage and you have the persistence, you have the adaptability, then leadership becomes the next stage of your persona. So, leadership and social and cultural awareness. See, one is literacy, other is awareness. You should be aware of people's cultures. Since you are globalized, since you are required to meet people who are not necessarily from your culture, not necessarily from your geography, you need to understand and you need to be aware of their cultures and their sensitivities. So these are going to be the basic character qualities which would be required for future challenges. I think having said this, you can imagine what kind of society are we imagining? What kind of product that we are imagining to come out of the process of education or process of learning? And if you imagine most of us or most of the new generation has all these characteristics and they are willing to face, then we can think of how higher learning or higher education would interact with the society. Now comes the topic where we are actually thinking of interacting with the society. So, what the society can do for higher learning or higher education, and what the higher education can do for the society. So, next slide, please. So, I think we need to understand the purpose of higher education. As I speak with many students and many those who are working, the purpose as defined is mostly the career. So, livelihood. I need to get a job. I need to do the IAS. I have to become a doctor. I have to become an engineer. And my purpose of higher education is to become a professional in either medicine or in engineering or in government jobs, become a police officer. But actually, that's not the purpose of higher education. The basic purpose of higher education is to advance the basic sciences, social sciences, and arts. I mean, one of the reasons why higher learning or higher education exists is not to make someone a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor. It exists so that the basic sciences advance, the social sciences advance, and the arts advances. The next is to integrate curriculum with economic activities. Now, at school level, nobody expects the education to actually integrate with the economic activities in the area because you are still at the basic level. But at higher level of education, unless the curriculum integrates with the basic economic activities for generating personal and economic advancements, uh, the very purpose of establishing seats of higher learning would be defeated. So, in perspective planning for the universities, this one question was always discussed in the High Powered Committee. There were five vice chancellors, ex vice chancellors sitting in that committee. I was the only member from industry. So, the discussion was always about where to locate a new college and how to decide what college needs to come up in a particular area. And my basic question used to be, do we really need a college? And the justification always was there are so many students in school examination who have actually passed the school examination. And because there are so many students in that area, a college is viable because it will have so many students. Question is it a agro economy? Is it a trading economy? Is it a industrial economy? Is it a tourism related economy? What kind of economy exists in that geography? Okay, there are 1,000 students coming out of school every year. But what's the economic activity? That's a major economic activity in that region. So, college which makes sense or a college which deals with subjects that are related to that particular economic activity will make more sense in that area. The students would have more affinity towards such colleges. You have all the industry and you are teaching students about agriculture. I mean, makes no sense. You have all the agriculture around you and you are teaching students about industry. makes no sense. So the seats of higher learning have to be well integrated with the geographical economic activities in that particular area. And unless your perspective plans start taking care of that, the very purpose of creating a center for higher education will be defeated, because it will really not add any value. It will create graduates who are hopelessly looking for opportunities, and since there are no opportunities in their area, they are forced to migrate. So actually, you are creating a society which is already under a lot of stress, and that's not the purpose of higher education. The next purpose of higher education is to study and extend help in solving hurdles faced by the society. So, if you are located in a geography, you need to look around you, see what are the hurdles that are faced, and create surveys and possibilities for actually solving the issues faced by the society. So, any higher education institute which actually is able to address the issues faced by the local society, the geographical area where they are located, would be would make a far more impact on the society than an educational institution which is completely removed from the ground realities of the society and is actually indulging in the curriculums that are stipulated by either the university or maybe some body which actually regulates you. So the regulators are sitting somewhere at a distance, but you are actually in the geographical location, and therefore you need to look at the surroundings and actually study the issues that are faced by the society. So that's the purpose of higher education. And then to create new opportunities for gainful engagement by developing technologies, products, and economic models. See, again, the very purpose of educational institutions is actually to develop technologies. Though we hardly do it in our country, entire world higher learning education institutes are driven by developments, either development of technologies or development of products which actually solve certain issues faced by the society. Technology is for future. You may not be developing a technology which is solving today's problem, but you are working on a technology which is actually going to take care of their next 100 years of requirement. Not solve issues that are being faced for last 100 years, but actually preparing the society for next 100 years. So you need to work on technologies, you need to work on products, and then there are economic models. You see, people rarely realize while living their day-to-day lives that they are a part of an economic model that is being thrust upon them, or that they have entered willingly. And unless they understand this entire economic model, and unless these economic models are created so that the society benefits, the commoners in the society benefit, uh, the very purpose of higher education would be difficult. Unfortunately, we see around us economic models that are actually designed for benefit of only a few. They are not designed for benefit of everyone. They are basically designed for benefit of a few. And these economic models are being marketed saying that they are the best thing for the society. And without understanding the implications, we are willing to actually get convinced by the propaganda about these economic models. Globalization was one such economic model that was thrust on us in the 90s, 80s, and 90s. And we accepted it. We said that, okay, that's the best thing for us, because we were at a certain stage of development industrially and economically. It definitely has helped us. But how has it impacted the real developed world is something that we need to study. And recently, in last 5 7 years, suddenly there is a move away from globalization. Why is that? And this move has not come from the developing nations. This move is coming in the developed nations. So, economic models which are created need to be actually benefiting a large section of the society and not really a very small section of the society. And who would create such economic models other than the academia? I think this is a major responsibility for higher education. So the purpose of higher education is not actually dispensing degrees, not actually teaching the curriculum. It is much larger than what we actually do in our day-to-day life. We need to understand the purpose. Once we understand the purpose, then what you are doing on day-to-day basis may change a little, your curriculums may change a little, framing of curriculum may change a lot, and then actually the process of learning and education will change humongously. There would be complete paradigm shifts if we understand the purpose of education, higher education. I think the way we actually administer and run our colleges and universities would completely change. And therefore, understanding the purpose of higher education is a must. And if we are able to understand the purpose of higher education, and if we are able to make the changes, then the society stands to benefit a lot. But for getting this benefit, what the society needs to do for the education? I think it's never a one-way traffic that you do something and the society doesn't do anything. It's never that. It is always a give and take. And therefore, our next slide would tell us as to what to expect from the society. What are the responsibilities of the society? So, next slide, please. See, where is the involvement of the society? Excuse me. The involvement of society would be in developing infrastructure. Now, if we really look at our entire higher education system, barring a few private colleges, non-grant basis colleges, most of our educational system was hopelessly dependent on government funding. For our day-to-day expenses, for our salaries, for actually developing all the infrastructure, we were hopelessly dependent on the government, and it suited the ruling combine. I mean, whoever was ruling the country, for them, it was very important that people depend on them. So depending on government means depending on the ruling class of the society. And we were hopelessly dependent on them. But actually, if you remain dependent on a government, then their priorities are not necessarily higher education. Their priorities will keep changing. Their priorities will keep changing depending on the various pressures that they face at particular point of time. And ultimately, what can be sacrificed easily for them is not the farmers who are majoritarily voters. They would always try to satisfy the major classes of voters, but people who are in education field need not necessarily be a very influential voter group that they cannot sacrifice something on education. I think the governments have been doing that over the last 40 years. My observation is that slowly and steadily, the government initially was very aggressive in taking responsibilities, and now the government is finding it extremely difficult to actually discharge those responsibilities. So there is a shrinking of support from the government, and I think the society needs to step in trying to help the institutions, higher educational institutions, in setting up labs, various learning centers, various sports facilities, incubation facilities. And again, these are indicative lists, these are not exhaustive lists. This is something that came to my mind while I was thinking, but there would be many other areas where the society can step in and help the higher education in creating infrastructure. Now we are talking only of infrastructure. What are the inputs for curriculum? You see, most of our curriculums are dated. I would say the society is facing certain issues or using certain technologies or is actually part of an economic model that's not at all reflected in the curriculum. Very rarely you find that what is actually happening today is imbibed in the curriculum almost simultaneously. Things are improving. But I remember when I was doing engineering, the boilers that we studied were already outdated. No industry was using those boilers, but our theory books always described those boilers, and we were required to write examinations and answer questions based on those boilers. Whereas the world had moved to other things which served the same purpose as the boilers did, but they were very different technologies. Now, question is, the gap is reducing, but here we are talking, when we look at the purpose of the higher education, we are talking of creating future. We are not talking of bridging the gap between what is in the education and what is actually being used. So the society can actually contribute to a lot to framing of curriculum. There is trade, there is industry, there is agriculture, there is performing arts, there are artisans and craftsmen, social and cultural aspects, there are NGOs. So all of them can actually contribute to framing of curriculum and give a lot of inputs, provided we are open to receiving those inputs, provided we are willing to actually make changes in our curriculum and not continue to use the same notes that were being used last year or year before last. See, we need to actually be prepared to do a complete refreshers course every year, so that we are able to actually bring in new things which are currently being used by the society. And there the society can contribute a lot to curriculum framing, and all the people that I have mentioned, and there would be many others who could actually contribute to, there would be professionals who would also be able to contribute to curriculum framing. Though they are not part of the formal education system, being a part of the society, having consulted, they would be also willing to actually contribute to framing of curriculum. Then funding for sustenance. Actually, there are donors who would come and say that if you name the building, we would give you donation. Having created that building and given that name, that building needs electricity, that building needs maintenance, that building needs housekeeping, that building needs to be used. And during this period, actually, the building needs to be sustained. So, who would fund the sustenance? If there are to be activities in that building, each activity would need some kind of a expense, some kind of a sustenance budget. Without that sustenance, no activity is possible. And a building without activity is like a monument. I mean, it is there, somebody's name is there, but nothing happens there. So only tourists would be interested to visit it sometime later, maybe 100 years down the line. There only the tourists who would be interested. But actually, in the higher education, sustenance is most important. And in my opinion, actually, if people start creating seeds by donating money, and through the interest, we are able to actually pay salaries to people who are very good educators, people who are actually very good at transforming students. The government system would want you to enter at a certain age after a certain qualification and then exit the system at a certain age. In between, there may be stages as defined by the system where you may have your career advancements. But uh, career advancements as being designation advancements and salary advancements and career advancement as contribution advancement. You are actually contributing more. So when is that possible? When will that be actually mapped? When will that be actually seen by the system? Only when you have society contributing and creating enough funds which can sustain salary or compensation of people who are involved in this process. So creating seats, not every student and not every parent can afford. Taking educational loan is all right for US, maybe all right for a few people in India, but that's not possible everywhere. And government giving the fees for everyone, uh, as it is, we see that wherever the government has promised to actually reimburse the fees for certain class of students, the government is failing miserably. Uh, Under the right to education up to 8th class, the government promised that 25% of the students from economically backward class should be admitted and their fees would be reimbursed by the government. There is a reimbursement of fees in professional courses for certain class of students. And all the educational institutions are suffering because the fees doesn't come in time. You can't say that I have not received fees for 25% of the students, so I'll only pay 75% of the salary. I'll pay only 75% of the electricity bill. That is not possible for non-funded institutes. So let us understand that the society has a role to play. There were universities in this country in the 7th century, 8th century, 9th, 12th century, till 12th century or 13th century. How were they sustaining? What was their source of funding? I think we need to go into depths of that sourcing. And there, though the kings were actually making some certain endowments and giving some money, the kings and the kingdoms were not really helping the complete sustenance of these universities. They were helping, but that was only a part of the entire money that was being received or entire resources that were being received by these universities. They were centers of higher learning, and they were large centers of higher learning where between 10 to 20,000 students used to study at a time. So how was it being managed? There would be a lot of learning. And I think we need to create such economic models for the educational institutions where the society takes care of students. The endeavors of students take care of a lot of their own requirements. And a lot of society people also actually help funding the basic and social research. So there is some basic research on sciences which may not come in handy next year or which may not be useful to anyone in the near future. And there would be social research which would actually help the society to reform, transform in near future, in foreseeable future. So who should be funding all this? Should the UGC be the one which should be funding this? Or should the society, which has a lot of stake in higher education, should that be funding this? I personally feel that the society and a lot of organizations in the society should come forward and start funding this. But it will happen only when we open up, only when the institutes of higher education open up and they start taking something which is very meaningful for the society surrounding them. The society can also sponsor learning activities and learning events. See, there are a lot of events like you invite someone who is very well experienced in a certain field, maybe agriculture, maybe running an NGO, maybe running an industry or a trading organization, maybe a banker, or maybe an artist who is willing to share his or her experiences with the students who are undergoing certain curriculum or classes. So can it be sponsored? Because there would be expenditure involved. There would be arrangements which will need resources. So can the society step in and start sponsoring such activities? I think that would help to improve the sustenance of the institutions of higher education, and the society can really contribute to sustenance, not only creating infrastructure but also sustenance, including the enrollment of students. So next slide, please. See, as I said, participating in student learning exercises. So students are actually doing a lot of learning exercise in their time spent in the learning institutes or educational institutes. So adjunct professor is something that is created, but I have not really observed that being used extensively. I have no idea what are the hurdles, but you need to find out. Why can't we invite people with a lot of experience who would come and take up responsibility of actually interacting with students to explain them a certain part of the curriculum? Because the adjunct professor is required to actually take up responsibility of curriculum and actually interact with students and explain them and share with them his experience while he is actually explaining them the part of curriculum. Then, as I described, sharing of experience. People like me who are not really part of educational institute, probably who may not qualify even to be an adjunct professor, can always come on certain events, share our experiences, interact with students, and help them understand the future challenges and also understand the subjects that they are learning. Then guiding projects. You see, you undertake certain projects in educational institutions so that the students' understanding of certain subjects improve. Now, as part of the educational institution, your exposure to field is limited. But there is someone outside who has an extensive exposure to this field, and the project is related to that particular field. Can we not request such people to come and guide our students so that they are able to undertake that project very meaningfully and gain a lot of experience and knowledge through such projects? So again, as I said, I am only talking on certain list which is indicative. You can extend it. You can probably shortlist a lot more activities where the society can step in. Participation in research and development project. My experience in the past while working in Saraswati Bhavan is people are not willing to participate in surveys. They are not open to giving honest answers. And that is because they have a basic doubt as to why these number of students have come to me with a certain set of questions and why are they asking me these questions? What is the ultimate use? Why should I share this information? So there is a basic paucity of trust. There is a complete lack of trust or a paucity of trust. Unless the educational institutions start building bridges with the society, his participation in research and development projects would become difficult. Most of the industry in the West actually funds universities to undertake development projects, research and development projects. There are social researches which also are required. You have an economic model. One economic model is our agriculture, and particularly for marginal farmers. Now, there is a lot of talk for last 20 years about the suicides being committed by the marginal farmers. There is a lot of talk about actually waiving their loans. Now, there is a huge talk on giving them MSP, minimum support price. Question is, someone needs from academia to go into details of what will happen if this MSP is really given. Will it really satisfy the farmers? Will it really help the farmers? And will all the suicides in farming stop? Or will it create some other problem which is not being foreseen by anyone? Will waiver of all the farm loans help the farmers? Will it really create an environment where the farming becomes a sustainable economic activity? I think we need to go into these details. And who would do this? Who would do this? Unless we undertake such projects, either funded by the government, if they are honest about funding such projects and really understanding the reasons, or funded by some NGOs or some philanthropists who are willing to actually put in money to understand and create economic models which would help change the ground realities for the farmers. And not only farmers, for many others who are economically backward, not doing so well. So, can we undertake such research and development projects where the society becomes part, they sponsor, they also participate in these survey projects and research projects and share their information transparently so that it can be analyzed and right conclusions can be drawn. If wrong data is fed, then the results would also be wrong. We need to understand that, and I'm sure the society can participate in this. And when it becomes a society's initiative, I think this paucity of trust or building bridge will become that much easier for all the institutions. And my last point is on internship opportunities. So the national education policy envisages that the students would actually get a lot of work experience while they are studying. And this would need a large number of students, maybe a few thousand in certain geographies and a few lakhs in other geographies. They will need to actually work. So my experience in the past is everyone comes to industry and say that would you offer internship? Question is, to a commerce student, I would certainly offer internship, but the commercial departments in the industry are, if you are not directly marketing to the customers, consumers, then your commercial departments are very small departments. They are mostly accounting departments and finance departments. So what kind of internships can I offer to BCom students? Except maybe working on computer and making entries in one of the ERPs of credit and debits. But that is not much of an experience. So where could he get an experience? Maybe the banks, maybe the trading organizations where there is a lot of commercial activity. So we need to understand that in placement of students, it is not necessary that they be placed only in industry. They could be placed in trading firms, they could be placed in banking, they could be placed in agriculture. Why not? Why not work on a farm for 15, 20 days or 1 month or 3 months, whatever is required by your curriculum? And if you are a commerce student or even if you are a science student and pursuing biology, your exposure to agriculture will help you understand a lot of things. Then there are local self-governments, the Zilla Parishads, the Gram Panchayats, the municipal corporations, the municipalities. I mean, each one of them is involved in so many activities that placing students there and letting them work in those institutions would help them to understand a lot of issues that are faced by the society and what kind of solutions the government is offering, what kind of efforts the government is doing. And when I say government, starting from central government to state government to all these local self-governments, there are many government departments like B&C, like health, uh, any number of them. Why can't we place students there? They have establishments practically in every city. Some of the departments have establishments in practically every village. So why can't we look at all these? There are NGOs who are doing a humongous work amongst the society. So why can't we place some of our students for internship in these NGOs? There are a lot of service providers like BVG, which does housekeeping and employs almost 15, 20,000 people. So why can't we place students in housekeeping services? Why can't we put people in certain other areas? Maybe security. There are security agencies providing security to multiple locations. employing thousands of people, airports, airlines. I mean, you have many such economic activities which are happening around you, and we look at only industry. I think we need to widen our vision and start looking at all economic activities as a prospective place where our students can be placed for their internships and create awareness among students so that they also opt for this wide variety of experience, not go to just one institution every year to acquire the experience, work experience, or a certificate. So the society can also contribute to actually creating these opportunities for students, which would actually help the capacity building as envisaged in the national education policy. With this, my last slide is about encapsulating all the points of basic education that I discussed, and then I'll stop so that we can have some question and answers or some discussions if the organizers permit. So next slide, please. So this slide would show you all that was discussed in the first few slides, like what is the educational progression, the skills and attributes, the foundational blocks of education, the naitik mulyas or the values that one should have, the challenges and the basic skills and attributes that are required for future. So with this, I close my discussions. Thank you very much for listening to me very patiently because I have been speaking almost non-stop for last 1.5 hours. So thank you for being patient.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, sir. Any questions from the participants? They can unmute themselves and ask. Participants, आप खुद unmute कर सकते हो अब. Are there, sir? We can go for valedictory, sir. If no questions are there, yes, Sarika ma'am, any question? So Amol, you can start the banner and university song. Amol Madan. Respected director has joined.
गीत सागराचे इतिहासाचे जनमनाचे गीत आमुचे जागराचे गीत आमुचे आकाशाचे गीत आमुचे सागराचे इतिहासाचे जनमनाचे गीत आमुचे जागराचे
अभंगाचे ओवीचेही माय बोलीचे माहेर
वाऱ्यातही मराठीचे दिवे लख घरोघर संत महंतांचे विरागी गीत आमुचे वादळाचे इतिहासाचे जनमनाचे गीत आमुचे जागराचे तंतु तंतु संघर्षाचा पैठणीत भिनलेला
नक्षीतच पक्षी पक्षी विजयाचा मिळलेला
सोन पहाट उदयाचे गीत आमुचे उजेडाचे इतिहासाचे जनमनाचे गीत आमुचे जागराचे प्रज्ञेचा सूर्य नवा शब्द शब्द उजळून गेला समतेचा संगराचा अर्थ ढाळून गेला विराट विशाल संस्कृतीचे गीत आमुचे जीवनाचे इतिहासाचे जनमनाचे गीत आमुचे जागराचे गीत आमुचे आकाशाचे गीत आमुचे सागराचे इतिहासाचे जनमनाचे गीत आमुचे जागराचे
Thank you, Amol. You can stop the university song and the PowerPoint presentation. On behalf of UGC Malviya Mission Teachers Training Center, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, I welcome today's chief guest, Ram Bhogale sir, to this valedictory function of the UGC NEP sensitization and orientation course, which was held for past 8 working days. Also, I welcome our respected director of this UGC Malviya Mission Teachers Training Center, Professor Satish Patil sir, to this valedictory function. Already, our respected guest has enlightened us for more than 1.5 hours through his valuable inputs into the new national education policy. So already we have heard a lot and I think that he must have got exhausted. So, not taking much of time, I would now request Ram Bhogle sir to say a few words for the valedictory address, sir. A few words, sir.
Voice.
सर व्हॉइस ब्रेक होतो सर. भोगले सर व्हॉइस ब्रेक होतो. मोबाईलच्या नेटवर्कच्या इश्यू असतील सर ते. सर ऑडिओ कनेक्ट करा सर. ऑडिओ कनेक्ट नाही झाला आपलं. येस सर, यू कॅन स्पीक. येस भोगले सर, यू आर ऑडिबल सर.
Professor, ask him to rejoin again.
Yes, sir. Bhogle sir, you can exit the meeting and you can join it again. Yes. Bhogle sir, you can unmute now.
Unmute, sir. Unmute.
यू कॅन स्टॉप द व्हिडिओ. तुम्ही सर व्हिडिओ बंद करून टाका. त्यामध्ये जे नेटवर्कचा इश्यू आहे ना ते चालून जाईल सर. येस सर. फक्त माईक ऑन करून तुम्ही बघा, नेटवर्कचा इश्यू नाही राहील सर.
सो आता अनम्यूट झालंय का?
येस सर, युअर ऑडिबल ऑल्सो सर.
Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm not really from the academic field, but I
Yes,
have a
sir.
lot of exposure to this field through various appointments that the government did, and I have seen from the government side how they look at education. And for last 5 years, I have seen from an educational institution perspective how we need to actually reform the education. From the government side, because it is funding majority of the educational activities, including the higher education, the universities, the colleges, uh, they actually come out with parameters which are measurable parameters, and then they start measuring educational performance and educational institutions based on those parameters. But these are measurable parameters. So attendance is one of them, the percentage of result is another, number of students is third. So these are some of the parameters that the government has decided, but you cannot really evaluate education and performance of educational institutions based on these measurable parameters. There are many things beyond these measurable parameters. And since the government doesn't know how to capture that, and they do not have any technology to capture that, they restrict their entire decision making based on these captured parameters and the decisions that they arrive at through analysis of these parameters. My understanding is we actually need to make a substantial change in this. Unless we start understanding the parameters that cannot be really measured in terms of numbers, and unless we start analyzing those parameters, correct decisions regarding education will not be possible. The national education policy now tries to go beyond these parameters and has given a lot of freedom, I would say, so to say, freedom, so that we are able to perform much better and we are able to achieve much better results. There would be a continuous monitoring by the government as long as the government is involved majoritarily in funding the educational institutions, and the government would always try to measure parameters. But taking good advantage of the provisions in the new education policy, the national education policy, the institutions will be able to go beyond that. And any institution which is able to reduce its dependence on two things. One is on the fee collected from student for all the unaided institutions, and from the government grants that are received for disbursing salaries and also for creating infrastructure. If we are able to reduce these two dependencies, for unaided institutions, dependence on the fee, and for aided institutions, dependence on purely the government grants, then I think education would be free of many shackles that it faces, many provisions that are not really helpful in growth of education and in growth of particularly the quality of education. Its reach also. So we need to increase that reach. We need to increase this by making the best possible use of this national education policy, and all those entrepreneurial people inside the field of education would be able to do a lot of out of box thinking and a lot of lateral thinking, which would then help the education to become independent of either the fees or the government grants. And for this exercise, I give you all my best wishes. I'm happy that the university and many other institutions are creating awareness about this. about the national education policy. But I wish that all these exercises should not become the exercise of five blind trying to evaluate an elephant. Because this national education policy is like an elephant, it's humongous. And each one trying to look at it from a very small perspective, a very limited perspective, would make its evaluation and make its implementation not very effective. And we need effective implementation of this policy. So we need to understand this elephant in its entirety, and therefore we need many people to work on it intuitively, innovatively, and with very open minds, because this is going to change a lot of ground realities for all of us involved in the field of education. It would mean giving up old habits, and it would mean acquiring many new things that probably are known, and many of them probably are not known even today. So, for that exercise, I give my best wishes and thank the organizers for inviting me to this valedictory function. Thank you very much.
Now I would request our respected director, Professor Satish Patil sir, to deliver a presidential remark to this valedictory function. Hello.
Good afternoon, all of you. The chief guest of this valedictory function, respected Ram Bhogale sir, the Assistant Director of MMTTC Center, Dr. Rafe, and all the fellow participants from the Pan India. This NEP orientation and sensitization program, which was started on 5th of February, which was inaugurated by Dr. Upendra Kulkarni, and he interacted with the participants on the very crucial topic of skill development and application of skill in education, which was very, very important. After that, the Anita Sharma from the Public School of New Delhi, who is also a member of NCRT education, she led both the sessions, and she talked about the student diversity and inclusive education. On 7th February, Dr. Mandar Bhanuse, who is head faculty of science and technology at the University of Mumbai, shedding the light on the information and communication technology use of it in education. On 5th, Dr. Azruddin also guided the audience through the realm of academic leadership, governance, and the management in both the sessions. And on 9th, Dr. Vishala Sharma, she also interacted with the participants on the unfolding the intricacies of the Indian knowledge system. On 12th, Rekha Sharma, a former professor and director of UGC MMTTC Rashtrasant Tukdoji Maharaj Nagpur, she shared her expertise on the research and development in both the sessions. So enlightening the sessions persisted on the on 13th. Professor Andri Pandey sir, who is a former vice chancellor of this Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Marathwada University, he talked about the holistic and multidisciplinary education in the Indian context. And today, Honorable Sri Ram Bhogale sir, who discussed on the intersection of higher education and society in both the sessions. Sir, we have started this NEP orientation sensitization programs as per the UGC guidelines since last 3 months. And I'm very happy to share you that from the Pan India, the response for these courses are found to be very huge. And we are inviting the experts in their own field for the sensitizing teachers as far as the NAP implementation is concerned. But as you rightly told that, though it is a NEP is nothing but an elephant in the education, but there are certain challenges that also we need to take care of it, because when we are talking about the technology integration, we need to integrate the advanced technologies into the academics and administrations. That is the biggest challenge. Then particularly the digital the sole theme of this NEP is to create access and inclusivity. And the most important part, the challenge is that how to bridge the rural-urban education gap. I think that is to be addressed into the NEP, and I think the most important part of NEP. And we know that still, after even 75 years of independence, the countries like India, we have a socio-economic disparities. How to met out the disparities is also the biggest challenge before the NEP implementation. Of course, employability is a big question. And I think that can be met out if we could be able to implement with the right spirit this NEP 2020 with a certain collaboration with the industries and developing the practical skills. As far as the research and innovation is concerned, I think there are many challenges, and promoting the societal needs specific research and innovation is a biggest challenge, because you know that, as it has been told, our Prime Minister, that though we are very much improving as far as the filing the patents and IPR is concerned, but the most important part is that can we convert this innovation into the practice? That is very important, and you know that it has been already been spoken that more than 50% of the innovation which comes from the rural area, which may not be particularly from the formal education system, but that due recognition is to be given. I think that is the biggest challenge before us, and facing the students, encouraging the students, faculty and students, and for the funding of research. That is also very important. Of course, as far as the institutional build-up is concerned, the mindset of the government is what it has been rightly told, Bhogale sir, that we need to create our own financial sustainability of the academic institutions. That is very important. And I think that will come through the diverse funding resources and ensuring the efficient financial management systems in education. Now, the academy and industry interaction and collaboration, that also needs to be very much enhanced, because effective mechanism, we need to develop an effective mechanism for the industry academia partnerships, particularly the internships and the skill development programs. And now we are in the global context. We need to develop MOUs with a reputed international institutions for the research activities, and we should have a collaborative research projects. Then and then only your education can be internationalized. All the experts, they are renowned in their fields, and they share their all experiences and their thoughts with all participants, and had a brainstorming. I thank Bhogale sir for sparing his valuable time, because you know that he's in this game of NEP since beginning, while framing the NEP strategies also. I know it. And I also thank all the participants of this NEP sensitization orientation program for the patient hearing and the interacting with the resource person from their side. The only challenge before us, that as it has been targeted, that the NEP implementation needs to be effectively implemented in the 10 to 11 years to come, from the school to the college educations. But you know that it has been rightly pointed out by the Bhogale sir that we need to change the mindset of the teacher first, mindsets of the institutional managers first, and then we should see that the change which is occurring through this education, the student should be prepared for that, and they should lead the country and the world to see that they should be very comfortable in the education systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, under the visionary leader of Professor Satish Patil, sir, we have nearly completed near about 5 NEP sensitization program, and more than 1,000 teachers have been trained. And Pan India, when teachers are coming in Pan India, so also the resource person allotted by our honorable director sir are from Pan India, right from Kerala, New Delhi, and those people, those who are actually working, like our today's guest Ram Bhogale sir, who has actually worked in various committee of government of Maharashtra and has a experience of presiding one of the prestigious colleges of Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar SB Society. So we are really thankful to the honorable guest also and our respected director also for the success of this program, and truly under the visionary leadership of our respected director sir, we in future also we will do these NEP courses continuously. We have announced the courses for March month A course and B first week course and last week course. So I would request all the participants to inform these things to your colleagues. On 27th February also, we are going to conduct one NEP program. The last day of registration for the 26th February is 20th February. So I would request all the participants to encourage your colleagues, your friends, your relatives to get enrolled, those who are working in higher education institution in this NEP sensitization program. Also, again, what I have requested in the starting of my lecture, again, I would like to place those requests in front of you. First thing is that to complete all the formalities on the web portal, be it your nomination letter, your iCard and photos should be uploaded. Agar wo uploaded nahi hai, no certificate will be sent to you. And second thing, the MCQs test will be on Friday from 11:30 to 12:30. Kindly take a note of it. So with the permission of our president of this valedictory function and the chief guest, I now declare this valedictory function is over, and I would now request Amol Madan to play the national anthem, and I would request all the participants to stand up for national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, thank you. Thank you one and all. I would now request Amol Madan to stop